We've got some new fixtures in FPL, with blank game week 32 and double game week 34 now being confirmed. Here are some players to buy and avoid for game week 29. So starting off with the fixtures that I mentioned. As I said, we've got two new announcements that have come in the last week or so, in that double game week 34 and blank game week 32 have been announced. So blanks for Brighton, Chelsea, Man City and Man United are occurring in 32. Then in 34, Brighton, Fulham, Liverpool, Man City, Man United and West Ham have a nice double game week. And we all know that double game week 29 is absolutely massive. I don't really need to go through that news again. We all know that's coming up. 12 teams in total double. And with all of those fixtures in mind, including potential doubles or very likely doubles according to the Ben Crellin fixture planner spreadsheet, 36, 37 looking like double game weeks for Brighton and Newcastle in 36. Brighton again, Chelsea, Man City and Man United in 37. So I think with that in mind, you probably get an idea of some of the players that I'm going to mention in this video. So starting things off, we've got Luke Shaw. He obviously got sent off in the England game against Italy, which from an FPL perspective means he's not going to play for England again during this international break and hopefully remains injury-free and back for Man United's double game week in game week 29. He seems to me, for me, to be the first choice left back for Man United. He's one of the most nailed defenders in that team. He seems to have really good longevity. He can keep running for 90 minutes and he can play pretty much every game. They stick him on some corners and the crossing like free kick opportunities. He's on all of those, which gives him chances of assists. He's got decent fixtures up to a blank in 32, where I think you could probably move on to Zinchenko or simply bench him if you wanted to. His underlying numbers aren't amazing compared to other fullbacks of his position, but bear in mind he has played some games at centre-back for Man United at this season. I think he's easily played 3 or 4, which has definitely had a detrimental impact on his underlying numbers. But for me, Man United have got some really good fixtures, double in 29, double in 34 and 37 coming up. So yeah, for me, Luke Shaw is a great option with all of that in mind. And yeah, for me, he's the best defender of that Man United team. Next up is a little feature on the Brighton midfielders. Given that Brighton have potentially 3 double game weeks coming up before the end of the season, it makes a lot of sense really to look at buying some of their midfielders. I think the best way to play it, in my opinion, is to probably buy 2 of these guys and then either a forward, which we'll come on to, and then probably a Stupinian in defence, which I've covered in a previous video. Out of the 3, I think McAllister is probably the best option. When he plays in that sort of a number 10 position, or the midfielder that makes the late attacking runs into the box, his expected returns are the best and he definitely looks the best option. He's also the designated free kick in penalty taker, so McAllister's number 1. I think for me, March is probably the second best. He's got the second best expected goal stats, and De Zerbi's putting a lot of attacking responsibility on him. Mitoma, he's definitely the best on the eye, and all the expected point stats seems to favour him above the other 2. But for me, he's probably third best. I'm not really saying there's much between them at all, to be honest. I would say McAllister's definitely number 1, and then March and Mitoma, it's really a coin flip. So yeah, you pick 2, there ain't much between them really. Another player I really like, certainly for game week 29 and 30, is Kai Havertz. He seems to be the first choice number 9 for Chelsea at the moment. Graham Potter's confirmed in an interview that he's the designated penalty taker. For me, if you've got or thinking of getting Ivan Toney on or need an alternative to him because he's close to his yellow card suspension, I think Havertz is a great option. He offers a similar upside to what Toney does. He's played 90 minutes in his last 6 Chelsea games, so to me that suggests he's in favour with the manager. He's got the longevity in his legs to play those minutes, and yeah, he's just pretty much nailed. He's got 3 goals in his last 3 games. I know it's not a massive sample size, but he's in good form for Chelsea at the moment. And I think Villa at home and Liverpool at home, albeit Liverpool are dangerous going forward, I do think that they're not very good defensively. So Villa at home, Liverpool at home, I could see goals in those games for Chelsea, especially for Kai Havertz. Now, I mentioned a Brighton striker on the midfielder segment, and here he is, Evan Ferguson. I think he provides such a good price at 4.6 million for the upside that he brings. He's playing well enough, in my opinion, and this is obviously why he's 4.6 million. He was never really back to start many games, but I think he's playing well enough to nail a place in that Brighton starting 11 at the moment. I think he's given De Zerbi something really to think about in terms of picking his team. I think he could be worth a punt in game week 29 if you want to take the risk and looking to gain some rank. And yeah, with 3 potential double game weeks coming up for the rest of the season, he's a really exciting option for those. His underlying numbers, 0.49 expected returns per 90, not amazing, but what he's actually been putting through is 0.97 returns per 90. That's what he's actually done. So he's in really good form at the moment, suggests he's really clinical. Yeah, I think he's a really good option. And for me as well, it allows you to restructure your team. So you could have Kane and Haaland as your 2 up front, with 5 midfielders if you wanted to. That's a nice, fun way to structure your FPL team. And he's got some decent expected points, as you can see there in the bottom left, for the remaining fixtures. But yeah, Evan Ferguson is a player that I definitely like the look of. Finally, in terms of players to buy, I've gone for Jared Bowen. I think he looks like a pretty decent differential option for game week 29, especially if you're just looking for like a 1 week punt, maybe on your free hit or something like that. I just think he's a nice option. His underlying numbers this season, 0.44 expected returns per 90, are not actually so much different from last season. You know, everyone knows he had an amazing year last year, and he sat at 0.54 expected returns, so only 0.1 away. So it suggests that he's not really playing too badly this season. He's just not putting the chances away. He's a great differential. Across the whole game, he's only owned by 2.7% of players, and I think the next 5, bar probably the Arsenal game, Newcastle conceding goals, I think those are some good fixtures. And I do think, you know, this is sort of how underlying numbers work. They don't go hand in hand with actual returns all the time, but over a long period of time, they level themselves out. And I'd like to think that towards the back end of this season, he starts to level those numbers out, get some actual returns to match those underlying numbers. And yeah, I've just got a bit of a feeling about him, and usually when I have a feeling about a player, I don't bring them in and they do really well. So here you go. I don't have the room in my team to bring him in, so that can only mean he's going to do well this week. And then finally, it's not necessarily to tell people to sell him. You probably already have, but it's just a note on Erling Haaland, really. We all know he's the best player in FPL at the moment, but there is an injury doubt about him at the moment. Alfie Haaland, I believe, his father was interviewed by The Guardian. I think it was The Guardian newspaper, and I got a quote that's been taken by Fantasy Football Hub here. Essentially, he's saying the injury is touch and go, and he doesn't know if he's going to be back for the Liverpool game or beyond. And yeah, he's not been training, so yeah, it's just unsure really whether Haaland's going to be fit for 29 and beyond, and one to monitor. And I think really that's the big news that's come out in the last week. And realistically, he doesn't have a great record against Liverpool for Man City so far. He's only got 1 goal in the 3 games he's played. So I say only 1 goal in 3. That's not bad. But, you know, for Erling Haaland, that's not the level that he has been for other teams, let's say. So yeah, rather than a player to sell or avoid necessarily, he's probably one to monitor going into game week 29 and 30. And that concludes the video. Just another one there to keep you ticking over while the international break is on. Give you an update on the fixtures and some more players I haven't spoken about yet that I think you should buy and avoid for the game week. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like rating, subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, and as always, let me know in the comments what you think of my picks. If you disagree, I'm happy to hear it in the comments. FPL is all about people with different opinions. Otherwise, we'd all have the same team. Well, some of us do already at the moment, given the wild cards we've all played recently. But yeah, see you in the next video.